All right, I'm recording. So today we're going to talk a little bit about security and different kinds of security beyond just user roles and that sort of thing. It's called row level security, and it's actually a module in Acumatica um, that you can see under more items there. So and it's all about restrictions and restricting what users can see and what they're able to do, which accounts they can access, and that sort of thing. So there's two ways that we can restrict. Well, actually, there's probably three ways that we can restrict things in Acumatica. And one's the way that I'm sure you're all familiar with, um, user roles, where we let them have access to certain modules, certain screens, and just overall access to the system itself. And the next is within user roles, we can actually restrict who can see which companies. So if you've got multiple branches um, in your company, go here. So I'm in
I
my, yeah,
I can't see your screen. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
so let's try this. Let's try sharing it.
I,
Can you see it now?
let me. Yes, it's coming up.
Yay. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Now I can't switch back. So, all right, so I'll go back here and sort of start over again. I was talking about being able to restrict in multiple ways. The one you guys are most familiar with being the user security. So through user security, we create user roles, different roles like AR, admin, and clerk, and cache. So that gives access to specific modules and those screens. So there are some customers who have more than one company, and that so this is an example in my local environment that has multiple companies. So they've got Revision to Capital, they've got Revision to Products, Services, and branches then within those companies. And you may not want all employees who have access to the system to see all the companies that you have. They may have no need whatsoever to see what's going on in those other companies. Um, and the way that you do that is still within the user security settings, only the user role that you would set up here is a company or a branch role. So here they've set up a branch for Revision to Capital and a branch for the product company. And these are roles. So within these roles, then you can assign users to them. So if we go pick a user, pick admin just because they have everything. So just like you would assign them to, a cache module role or an AR role, you would assign them to this branch, and it all ties together on the company itself. So if we go look at the companies and I look at Capital, Capital has that access role. So if we've assigned the Capital company the branch company role, then any user that also has this role will be able to log into this company, and all other companies that they've been assigned to as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's a way of limiting users to an overall branch or company. And I know right now uh, neither of you are using those, but maybe in the future, Tammy, with the merger.
Uh, Hopefully.
So when you need to get into more detail, like I don't want certain employees or users to see certain GL accounts or certain inventory items or certain warehouses, we can get down to more granular um, security in the row level security module. And this allows you to restrict usage or what users can see by things like GL accounts or sub accounts or customers, vendors. You can tie those to users, but you can also um, tie things that don't have anything to do with the user. So you could assign a GL account or certain GL accounts to a particular branch, and those accounts would only be visible, say, here to revision 2 products, so that people in other branches or companies wouldn't see those. Or you can, vendor classes, if you don't want all users to see all vendor classes. And the way these restriction groups work, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, has to do with creating restriction groups. So I'm going to use the GL accounts as an example. And, so we've got these 3 GL accounts that exist, and only these, accountants, user 1 and user 2, are allowed to see or work with these 3 um, GL accounts. And so if I create a group with them, then they can see these accounts, but they can also see all the other accounts, and nobody else can see these accounts. So if I have another group that has, these accountants work with these 3 accounts that are completely different, group 1 can't see the accounts in group 2, and group 2 can't see the accounts in group 1. Um, and if there's, say you've got a higher level manager, or the finance administrator that needs to see all of them, you would include the manager then in both groups. Hold on just one second, I'm sorry.
Is that okay?
Okay, so you've got these 2 groups, they're limited to what they can see or who can see these, sets of accounts. But you've got all these other, say, unrestricted accounts. These 2 groups can also see those. And if I look at all the other users, so I've got a lot of accountants, if you look at the accountants, they can only see unrestricted accounts. So essentially, if you're in a group and you assign accounts to that group can see those accounts and nobody else can. And you can have as many groups as you need to. So if we look at this as an example, I want to look at GL account access under row level security. And here I have a group called cash account access. And this is to block non-finance people from being able to see anything that has to do with the cash accounts. So here's my group, my restriction group. Here's, the description of it. And these are the users then that are checked that are allowed in this group. And then you've got additional tabs where you assign which accounts are involved in this cash account access. So these people are allowed to see these checked accounts. And you can even go down so far as to a sub-account level and restrict sub-accounts. So what ends up happening is if, you go to the banking module and are entering, payments or cash transactions, only these users will be able to access those cash accounts. And these are the accounts that would be limited. So this is considered a restriction group, and everybody else can see all the other accounts. So anything that's not checked here, all other users have access to. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So, another example might be restriction groups by, trying to think if you do GL accounts and sub accounts. No. So so you can set up restriction groups, you can create them, and define which entity you want to assign to them. So if I have, GL account and sub account restrictions. So this is going to be GL accounts to specific sub accounts. So my entity type is going to be a GL account. And so I want to select, say I'm picking these first two GL accounts, and I want to set which sub-accounts they can be tied to. So if I go back, I've created this group. If I go back to GL account access and I pick my GL and sub-account restriction group, here's the two accounts I've picked. I can say that those two accounts can only be tied to those specific sub-account segments. And if I want, this is not user defined, so it doesn't have anything to do with users. It's that if I go into a GL transaction and I select account 10100, I only want to see in my sub-account drop-down list segments of CON, FIN, and OPS. So I don't want it to show me sub-accounts that have any of these other segments in them. And that's for all users, not a specific set of users. And so what you would do is uncheck users. And by doing that, everybody has access to this limitation when they go to do finance transactions or any other transactions that involve those two accounts. Questions? Have I confused you?
No.
So it can get convoluted. Uh, those are the two examples that I gave you are pretty straightforward examples. And, GL account access is probably one of the most frequently used restrictions, making sure that, users can only see certain GL accounts. Customer access is another one. Um, so I can create a new, actually, I have to create the restriction group first. So you create the restriction group. This was going to be customer access. My entity type then is going to be customers, or we could do customer classes. So here's my customer classes. And say I just want to do international customers, people who are allowed to work and, create sales orders for international customers. Then back under customer access, I pick my customer account and assign, which of those customers are international customers. So these customers and these users then would be allowed to work with those international customers. So fairly straightforward. Um, if you want to play around, I would definitely suggest doing it in test first and then logging in as a user who has that access to make sure it looks the way that you would intend, or that they see um, the fields or entities that you want them to see.
So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
For maintaining the customer access, you would have to assign a customer to the class in AP, but also assign it here.
So yes, so your customers on the so that would be done in AR. So you would assign your customers, you've assigned them a customer class. Yeah, customer class is already there. So here's my list of customer classes. Local, international, and you do that because customer class is a required field when you set up your list of customers, so that then when you do row levels, when you do the security or the restrictions on them, I picked at the restriction group level. So I created this group of customers, and we'll call this, well, let me pull it up. We did customer classes. We're going to call it, so these are international customers. And I picked those classes. So, we saw in that list of customers that there was a key class, a local class, and then they've got these 3 international classes.
But then you have to go and actually select the customers here as well.
Then you would have to, that's a good point.
Why do you have to do it twice, I guess is my question.
You don't.
Okay.
You
Okay,
don't.
it appeared the way you were setting it up that we needed to select them twice. Okay.
Because we set up that restriction group, so, and this is where Acumatica lets you do things in multiple ways. So you could actually, I know, it's good and bad. So you could actually create a customer access restriction group here
Oh, okay.
and just assign the customers that you knew were international customers here.
Oh,
But we took another step that let us restrict it first by picking which classes belong to that group. So we said this group contains these customers, this set of customer classes. And so when we went to do the restriction on users, we picked this group that has a restriction already, and we're restricting it further with users. Does that make sense?
yeah, that you don't have to actually select customers here. You can just select the users. I see.
Correct. Correct. Because we restricted the customers already through the group here.
That makes sense.
Okay. And, if this is something that you guys want to start playing around with, we're happy to, jump on a call and sort of walk you through the initial steps. Or if you start playing and it's not acting the way, you expected it to act, it can take some trial and error sometimes when you're just getting used to what the different restrictions are and how they work.
All right.
So, any other questions? All right, guys, be safe, stay healthy. We'll
Okay. You
talk
too. Thanks.
all right, bye.
Thank you very much.